Good evening, everybody. I'd like to welcome you all to the Penn Club and the 2025 Dan Jenkins Medal for Excellence in Sportswriting Award Ceremony. My name is Mike Butterworth. I'm the director of the Center for Sports Communication and Media, part of the Moody College of Communication at the University of Texas at Austin. This is an annual event that we are extremely proud to host. And in just a few minutes, I want to provide you a little bit of introduction, say a few thank yous, and then we'll turn our attention to dinner as soon as possible. The Center for Sports Communication and Media at Texas is not a department. We are a program that works between our departments to feature the study, practice, and instruction of sports journalism, broadcasting, production, public relations, human communication, and much, much more. We do a number of events during the course of the year, including the McGarr Symposium on Sports and Society, which also includes the Frank DeFord Lecture in Sports Journalism, and of course, this event tonight. We sponsor the Sports Media Minor, contribute to a Sports Communication Graduate Program, and publish an annual report called the Politics in Sports Media Report. You can look for our 5th edition of that this January. Now, we also try to collaborate with our satellite campuses at UTLA in Burbank and UTNY, which is literally next door to this facility here. And we're hopeful that this opportunity and this evening gives us the invitation to do more in New York. We're especially proud to have the relationship with Dan Jenkins and the Jenkins family, and we take that opportunity very seriously and to heart. That it is an important way of preserving the legacy and the craft of great sports storytelling. As we settle in for dinner, I do have some thank yous, as I mentioned. And first, I want to acknowledge everyone in the Jenkins family who has welcomed us and trusted us to carry Dan's legacy as we do our best to do so. As you likely know, Dan was a proud graduate of Texas Christian University. And we figure that's fine as long as it's not A&M. Nevertheless, we're really grateful that the home for the Dan Jenkins Medal for Excellence in Sportswriting is in Austin at the University of Texas. I want to thank the members of the Jenkins Medal juries who volunteer their labor and provide us with an unbelievable array of nominees and winners each year. I want to also commend Michael McCambridge and Sally Jenkins, who are the co-chairs of those juries. It was Michael's vision that led to the creation of the Jenkins Medal in the first place. He remains its fiercest champion. For Sally, she has done the incredible balancing act of honoring her father's legacy while crafting one of her own in her own distinctive voice. I'd also like to acknowledge our center's manager, Chris Hart, who I saw moments ago filtering through. There he is, he's sitting, excellent. Chris is the person who behind the scenes has made many of the things happen that you're experiencing tonight, and I really want to thank Chris for all of the work that has gone into this. We have tremendous support from the Moody College of Communication. I'm extremely pleased that Interim Dean Anita Evangelisti is here, Associate Dean Cassandra Alvarado, Associate Dean Noah Eisenberg, and Director of UTNY Alice Eckstein also are all here. And a big thanks to Noah, Alice, and Areli from the UTNY office next door. They let us do a lot of staging there yesterday. We really appreciate the extra help with that. I want to give a shout out to Barbara Nevels here at the Penn Club and everyone else here, including and especially the folks who are preparing and serving everything that we will enjoy this evening. Planning an event from 1,700 miles away presents some challenges. So I am very grateful for everybody here making things as easy as possible and making our evening as special as possible. We're grateful for the support of donors Andy Priest and Cindy Garza and Tex Moncrief, whose generosity has provided the endowments for these two medals. And thanks as well to our sponsors of the tables tonight, ESPN, the Vern Lundquist Institute for Sports Media, which is part of the Headliners Foundation in Austin, Texas, and friend of the program, Brett Varsov. That support means so much to us, and I'm especially grateful that that means so many of our best and brightest students from UTNY can be here tonight. Can I get a hook 'em from the students in the back of the room? All right, there we go. Very good. It's just ingrained in us. So tonight, we have the privilege of honoring our 2025 Jenkins sports legend, the iconic Billie Jean King. I use that word intentionally. It's got to be one of the most overused words right now in especially online forms of journalism, but in this case, it is entirely appropriate and warranted. In the history of sports in the United States, there are athletes who have been dominant and have amassed championships. There are athletes who have leveraged their visibility and influence to be positive agents of cultural and political change. There are very few who have done both. And I think it is no exaggeration to say that of that very small group, Billie Jean King stands at the top. We are going to hear more later this evening about being world's #1, 39 Grand Slam championships, being the first woman athlete to earn $100,000 in a year, founding the Women's Tennis Association, beating Bobby Riggs in the Battle of the Sexes, launching the Women's Sports Foundation, and so much more. Half a century later, Billie Jean King continues to fight the good fight. And one other thing I would like to note that is especially close to my heart as a professor, I'm really excited to hear that you are completing your degree at Cal State Los Angeles, which I think appropriately enough is in history. Yeah. So I'll be yielding the floor to the far more entertaining Mary Carillo for the duration of the evening. So this is my only opportunity to address the crowd, and I want to just take advantage of that, if you'll indulge me. As a sports fan, as a person committed to the ideals of inclusion and opportunity, and as a scholar who is interested in the intersection of politics and sports, I'd like to say thank you to Billie Jean King for all you have accomplished on the court and the causes you have championed off of it. We are beyond thrilled to have you here this evening. We are equally thrilled to honor Dan Jenkins and celebrate the art and craft of sports writing. We'll do that very soon, but I would like to also offer my congratulations to Wright Thompson and to Roy Blount Jr. To have them receive medals tonight is something of a full circle moment for us. 8 years ago, at the inaugural Dan Jenkins Medal ceremony in Dallas at the old Parkland, Roy Blount Jr. served as the event's emcee, and Wright Thompson won the first Best Sports Writing medal. It is fitting, then, that Roy returns as our Lifetime Achievement winner on the same evening that we recognize Wright as our first ever two-time winner of the same medal. Sally has one of each, so you've got a little catching up to do there, but the first two-time winner in Best Sports Writing. We're going to hear a lot more about their exceptional contributions to sports storytelling very soon from our presenters, Seth Wickersham and Alex Wolff, and thank you, Seth and Alex, both for being here. We're going to start the program pretty soon. I want to just finally note that we're also extremely lucky to have Mary Carillo here as our MC for the evening. Mary, it's hard to believe it's already been 7 years since you were with us in Austin. That was a lot of fun. This is going to be so much more fun. We're thrilled that you are here. Thank you for making tonight even more special. It's going to be a great night, everybody. Thank you for your time. Please enjoy your dinner. You'll hear from Mary in about 20 or 30 minutes, and we're going to have a great time. Thank you all, and hook 'em.
Hi, everybody. My name is Mary Carillo. Enjoy your dinner. Hi. Thank you. Hi. Enjoy your dinner. We're gonna start stuff. This is a remarkable room. An unusually talented collection of humanity. I'm overwhelmed, honestly. Seen some old friends. The writing that happens, the students, I hope you enjoy this evening and understand just how much talent there is in this room. I personally, my brother, who's a writer, when I was a little kid, I was an idiot. I was just a jock, stupid. I didn't read anything, and I was just a tennis ball with feet, basically. One day, my brother, he just said, "Read this." He threw a book on my bed, and it was Ball 4. Jim Bouton's. I tell you what, it changed everything for me. I couldn't believe how much stuff. You kids, if any of you have not read Ball 4, read it, because it will light you up. I couldn't believe how much stuff was happening to that team, and how the locker room and everything that was going on. It just made me even more fascinated in athletes. And I mean, the written word to me is, tell a good story. It's everything. It's everything. It is a pleasure and an honor to be back here. I was the emcee for the second event. Dan was still alive. He was struggling, but he was still very much alive. He had plenty to say that night, throwing around opinions like Fritos. He was great. He was a very special guy, and the collection of people here tonight just underscore how special Dan was. He won so many awards in his career, but I think he seemed so truly pleased that medals were given out for excellence in sports writing that bore his name. I'm guessing he would very much approve of the winners tonight. I would give medals to about 60 people here, but we only got a couple, so let's start handing them out. Our first presenter is Seth Wickersham, a senior writer for ESPN. Yep, author of the instant New York Times bestseller American Kings. Seth, come on up. He's going to present the medal for best sports writing. Get up here. Do your thing.
Don't we usually have the 20-minute film that gives us speakers a chance to warm up? Look, I want to thank you guys, first of all, everybody coming out. This is a tremendous turnout, and it's just cool to be a part of this. Michael Butterworth, Michael McCambridge, Sally Jenkins, thank you guys for helping us all celebrate Dan Jenkins, the Jenkins family, the craft of journalism, and the inspiration that the students bring that, it's hard to get. And it's cool to see the next kind of generation of people come in and have a chance to be exposed to this type of thing. I'm here to present the medal to my dear friend, Wright Thompson, and he won this medal, his second, for a profile he did about Caitlin Clark. And it is a story about a young woman coming to terms with her power, the joys and fears and the prices of her abilities. But it's a story, as he writes, about someone who's 21 years old, and that precious time in one's life when the road before you is just starting to materialize and just about to open up, and about what it's like to look back at that time and look back at when you were 21 and try to understand what pieces of yourself survived in the decades after that and what pieces didn't. And I knew Wright when he was 21. Well, I will say 21-ish. But as someone who has spoken to him on most days since that time, indeed, his awesome wife, Sonia, often says that I've been married to him longer than she has. I want to tell you about this man at that age. It's an early evening. It's autumn of 1999. I am a senior at the University of Missouri. Wright is a redshirt junior. I'm glad a few of you got that. And we are journalism students with high opinions of ourselves and big dreams. And we have just started to learn about and study the legends in our desired profession. Dan Jenkins, Frank DeFord, Jim Murray, Rick Tellender, Ralph Wiley, and we want to be the next ones. And no, we've decided that we will be the next ones. How, we are not quite sure. But tonight, as we sit at the sports desk of the Columbia Missourian, we have that romantic faith that one day we will create a body of work that will reside alongside those legends. And then, around 6 o'clock, a problem arises in our path to long-form sports writing immortality. There is breaking news. The Missouri football team has fired its offensive coordinator, a man named Jerry Blount, and somebody has to write a story. Now, Wright and I are planning to be precious, legendary magazine writers, but right now we are football beat writers on a deadline, and we have to figure this shit out. 2 phone calls have to be made. One is to the athletic director, and the other is to Coach Blount. Neither of us wants to call the athletic director, and so we flip a coin. I lose. I grab a chair, I pick up the phone, and as Wright and some of our other friends look on, as if this is a sporting event, dial the athletic director. It is a short and awkward call. I handle it in a professional basis, and I get my decline comment. So now it's Wright's turn. So he calls Coach Jerry Blount, and we are watching and waiting. And after a few seconds, Wright mouths that he got the answering machine. The lucky son of a bitch. We all want the answering machine, right? And then Wright says something, then as we're watching him, we could tell that the beep happened, and he says something to the effect of, "This is Wright Thompson from the Columbia Missourian. We heard the news. I realize that I'm the last person in the world you want to talk to right now, but if there's any way you can please give me a call, I'd really appreciate it." And within a minute, the phone rang. It was Coach Jerry Blount. He confirmed the news. He wasn't a coach anymore at that point. He was a human, and he was returning the call of a 21-ish-year-old reporter who in a tough moment had also acted like a human. It was a simple and instinctive journalism lesson, and it's one that has stayed with me for years. Decades later, Wright applies the same thoughtfulness, the same heart, the same humanity to all of his stories. We wanted to make our mark in this profession, to be a link in a long and distinguished chain alongside those luminaries. And we have been privileged to be a part of the Jenkins Medal since its inception. As you know, Wright was the first winner, and he is the most recent. Now, I am biased, but I will say that we, and especially Wright, have tried to honor the work of those who came before by elevating their work and by trying to evolve it into our own. Nobody else could have brought the energy, the eye for detail, and most of all, the humanity to the Caitlin Clark story. In my opinion, nobody else could have written it. Those are the skills that he has busted his ass to perfect and polish over time, but they were evident decades ago in a newsroom that has been torn down and remodeled, in an industry that has been torn up and remodeled, when a 21-ish-year-old young man made a phone call that is always the answer to a question. Remember when. Anyway, Wright, thank you, and congratulations. Can't fall down. Hey, congratulations, man.
The 21-year-old version of me desperately wanted to flip the bird to the camera, but I stopped myself, so I wish my mother were here to praise my good behavior. Thank you very, very much for that. Seth and I have known each other for a long time. You know, the thing I'm thinking about now is the thing he said about being a link in a chain. Being connected to Dan Jenkins in any tiny way is the reward of a career. To have it happen multiple times is sort of beyond your wildest dreams. You know, I'm looking around the room, there's Sally, There's I see Alex Wolff, Seth and I, when we were in college, right around that same time, we drove to St. Louis because Alex Wolff was getting a talk, and we decided that we have to go meet anyone we can who works for Sports Illustrated. And it's funny because I talked to Alex about this tonight, and he didn't realize just how hungover we were. He kept ordering spicy food. I was just like, dude, I'm not gonna make it. But to be, the first time I won this, the Lifetime Achievement Award was Frank DeFord. And tonight, obviously, it's Roy Blount, who I can't even believe I sort of get to, this is crazy to me. And so, I know that, I can see the sort of college students in the back who have dreams and ideas about what they might want to do. And, the answer is there is a long chain of people who've been doing this for a very long time and doing it very well that, you can become part of. It's funny, I've introduced people doing this, and I always feel really clever and funny. I introduced when Tom Junot, sitting over there, won it several years ago, and I felt very clever and funny. And now I just feel, humble and grateful. This is really, Roy's night and his family's night, so I'm not going to belabor the point, except to say that when you get to be connected to Dan, when you get to be connected to Sally, when you get to be connected to Roy, when you get to be connected to Alex, when you get to be connected to Seth, when you get to be connected, my God, to Jackie McMullen, when you get to be connected to Tom Junot, you start looking around this room, when you get to be connected to Bob Costas, when you get to be connected to Chuck Culpepper, when you get to be connected to Michael McCambridge, who wrote the book The Franchise, which Seth and I read like some people read porn. I mean, like it was inappropriate how we were reading that book. When you get to stand in a room tonight and be a tiny little part of this long chain, it's really gratifying and really humbling. I couldn't be more grateful to be here or more appreciative. And finally, sitting over there is, my dear wife, Sonia. 8 years ago when I won this, she was pregnant with our first child, Wallace, who's 7, who's at home with grandma. It's really messed up when you have to win the most coveted award in sports writing so you can have 2 days with no kids with your wife. Honestly, that's really, the medal's nice, but we're gonna have a day tomorrow. If I run into you, I apologize in advance for one of the things my mom got me one year for Christmas was my mom got me these really nice engraved cards, on crane paper, really nice. And it said, Mr. Walter Wright Thompson Jr. regrets his behavior on, and had a little line. So we might be sending some of those out tomorrow. Thank you very much for this. Chris, thank you very much. Michael, thank you very, very much. This means more to me than I'm able to articulate, which is odd given my line of work. And I'm just so appreciative. And truly, it's, Mr. Blount, it's a real pleasure to be here on your night. Thank you very much.
I feel the same way. I've done a bunch of MC stuff, so's Bob, but this room it's dizzying. It's dizzying for me. The next presenter is Michael McCambridge, who's written about everything, everywhere, all at once, including the history of pro football called America's Game, and the big time, how the 70s transformed sports in America. That book alone makes Michael the perfect person to introduce the next conversation. Come on up.
Thank you, Mary. It is so good to have Mary back running the show. In 1947, when Jackie Robinson took the field for the Brooklyn Dodgers and integrated Major League Baseball, he was facing an unimaginable amount of pressure. Ultimately, of course, he would succeed and pave the way for other great African-American players to follow in his footsteps. Henry Aaron would later say that Jackie gave us our dreams. But during that 1947 season, when things were still in doubt, there was only the constant struggle, the blatant racism and physical intimidation from his opponents, and also the unceasing pressure accompanied by Robinson's deep sense of responsibility that he was now a symbol of Black America and that an entire race would be judged on his performance. Now skip ahead a quarter century to September 1973 as Billie Jean King prepares to take on Bobby Riggs in the Battle of the Sexes. She wasn't representing a race. She was representing an entire gender. And what was at stake was nothing less than the perceived legitimacy of women as athletes, not only in the US in tennis, but around the world and in every sport. And like so many other women's rights trailblazers of that time, she was attempting to make history while also holding down her regular job. There was a Virginia Slibs tournament in Houston that very week, so Billie Jean had to double up, play 2 matches on Tuesday so that she could have 1 day to prepare for Thursday night's showdown with Riggs. When she walked onto the Astrodome court that evening of September 20, 1973, in front of the largest crowd and the largest TV audience in tennis history, she was playing in what amounted to a referendum, not only on women in sports, but on the women's movement as a whole. I am convinced that no athlete in my lifetime has faced more pressure in a single sporting event. But Billie Jean believes her own mantra, pressure is a privilege. And that night she proceeded to shut down and also shut up Bobby Riggs in straight sets. If she had stopped then, she would still be a sporting legend. But of course, she did not stop. She went on to win 7 more Grand Slam titles. She founded the Women's Sports Foundation. She launched the highly influential Women's Sports Magazine. She started the visionary concept of World Team Tennis, and in the 2nd season of that league, became the first woman to coach male professional athletes. Talk about ahead of your time. After her playing career ended with 39 Grand Slam titles, her influence continued to resonate across generations. Julie Foudy, of the US national team that won the 1999 Women's World Cup, said, "Billie Jean empowered us." Into the 21st century, King has continued her staunch advocacy work for women's rights, gay rights, trans rights, and human rights, becoming an embodiment of that distinctly American principle of equal opportunity for all. And she has proved, just as Jackie Robinson did, that sports can change minds and be a catalyst for making the world a better, fairer, and more human place. And now she is here tonight to have a discussion with my esteemed co-chair, Sally Jenkins. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our Jenkins Medal sports legend for 2025, Ms. Billie Jean King. We've got this to present you, so we got to do one photo op here.
Yeah, I want to see that, because you wrote it, right?
I wrote it.
I know you wrote it. I'm teasing you.
No AI involved at all.
I know, I can tell.
All right.
Thank you. No,
Make
that-
sure you take this with you.
Thank you.
So, I'm
Can
gonna
I just thank Mike?
yes, please.
That was unbelievable. I haven't recovered, so anyway, I can't thank you enough for those kind words.
Thank you, Michael. I'm going to start with one remark. Every writer in this room knows you're only as good as your material, right? So how fortunate have we had to have this kind of material? At the end of my dad's life, he developed a new passion, a new sports passion. He'd been a college football guy. He'd been a golf guy. My father became an absolutely epically huge women's basketball fan.
Great.
At the end of his life, and a huge women's soccer fan. And when I asked him, I said, Dad, why do you love women's basketball so much? And what is this with the basketball and the women's soccer? And he said a really interesting thing. He said, in my entire life, I've never seen the arc of performance rise as steeply as I've watched it in women's sports. And I wanted to talk to you, I wanted to start out our conversation tonight by saying, have you felt that and have you seen that? If you go back to the 60s and your own athletic performance and you look at what women are doing now, you look at a Caitlin Clark, what do you feel and what do you see?
Well, first of all, I thank God every day that I'm still alive so I can see it. Because it's a dream my generation and generations before me had for women to have the same opportunities as our brothers. And so I still am in a hurry to get better and have more for everyone, for women and for men in different ways. That I just thank God every time there's something that happens, like Caitlin Clark coming around, reminded me of Chris Evert actually in 1971 when she was at the U.S. Open. It was exactly the same situation where everything changed. You know, a lot of people started to come and watch the television, the writers. And I would like to say this right now before I forget, because Ilana and I talk about it all the time, is that without all of you, without writers, women's sports would not have made it, because you always told our stories. Before we had social media, before we had, as you were talking, Mike was saying, AI is coming along. But without you, our story wouldn't have been told, and therefore women's sports would not have made it. And I'm not sure you really realize that. The pioneers that came before us, I used to talk to Frank DeFord all the time about this, and others, Barry Lorge, he's not with us either, and who became two of my great friends. But without you, and I would not be sitting here talking about where the arc of women's sports and where it's gone and what your dad was experiencing. So thank you. Just like to thank all of you. You told our story.
Okay, I'm going to take you all the way back to testifying before Congress when a little thing called Title IX was under debate in Congress. And you went and you testified.
Yes.
And you said the following. You said, I was told when you go on a tennis court with a fellow, this is you testified, I think, in 1970.
73.
Yeah, 73.
After the King Riggs match, they all wanted to meet me then. I'm just telling the truth. The senators and yeah, it's true.
I was told when you go on a tennis court with a fellow, make sure you let him win. Mm-hmm. And then you said, I used to do that.
Yes, I did.
You threw matches to guys
All
so
the
they'd
time.
feel better.
Yeah. I'd come off the court and everybody, the guys would be like, I could just see they couldn't wait to ask me the question, well, who won? And I'd always say he won. And then later the guy would come around and go, thank you so much for telling him that I won. I know I didn't. I know you won, but thank you. And I did have a moment, a flicker, a fleeting moment when I was playing Bobby Riggs. This hit me and I go, Billie, don't think that. Stop. I was so, but I did have that, just that tinge, that one flicker of a moment that I probably should let him win somehow. And I go, what am I doing? My self-talk was excellent. So,
Right.
I didn't speak so sweetly.
Okay, before that match, did you puke?
I did not. Before that match, I was totally ready. I get ready I get so nervous like 2 months out. I knew I was going to play him after Margaret Court lost to him in May.
We tell that story for people who don't know. Margaret Court lost to Bobby Riggs, got
And she
smeared.
became #1 that year. She was #1 in 73. I was #1 in 72. But I said to Larry, my former husband, I said, Larry, I know that Margaret will kill him if she plays her best, but just in case she should lose, I'm going to have to play him. So could we at least wait until after Wimbledon to announce it? Because once it's announced, I understood exactly what was going to happen, because we ended up having 90 million people watch, and the Super Bowl that year got 53 million, okay? So they kind of put some perspective, and that was worldwide, and I knew this was going to happen. And Title IX had just been passed the year before, so it was all these things coming together. So I had to win, or else I'd always be known as, you see that girl, she lost that old guy. You know, they won't know our names, but that's what they'll say. And I wanted to use it as a springboard to move forward with women's sports, and women and men, because when a woman does something, people always think, oh, she, you know, thanks for what you did for women. Well, I don't think like that. I think what I do for humans, for men and women. And so I don't think like that. But it's amazing with women, that's what people do to us. I don't know. You'll catch yourself, you'll hear it too. You'll hear it sometimes and go, oh, I hadn't thought of it. Just think about it for the future. But
You told me once that before the Riggs match, people thought women were chokers.
oh yeah, women athletes are the biggest chokers ever. Women are big chokers. But you know, I am really lucky. I had a dad, who believed in me as much as my younger brother. And I am telling you, every male in this room, how important that is, and obviously to mothers. But that made such a huge difference in my entire life, and it still does to this day, because my dad used to say things to me that I knew he believed in me as much as my brother. And he would ask, he was so worried about me that when I was 12, and I'd only been playing 1 year, he set me down, and I'll never forget, it was so quiet, and my dad says, Billie, are you sure you want to be #1 in the world in this? Because it'll give you a lot of heartache. You're going to have a lot of ups and downs. Are you sure you want to go through this? I go, Daddy, yes. He goes, okay, your mom and I will give it the best we can to help you, but you're sure? I mean, and they never asked us if we won, my brother and I. And my brother announced when he was 10 and I was 15 then, and I knew he was going to announce at the dinner table, he goes, Mom and Dad, just want you to know, I want to be a Major League Baseball player. And my parents go, oh. They look up and they go, you too want to be, what? Oh my God. My dad was a firefighter, so we weren't, didn't have a lot of big bucks and all that. And they said, well, we'll do the best we can to help you. Mother started working. My dad got a second job. Oh my gosh, you can't believe the sacrifices they made for us. But because my dad believed in me as much as my brother, was absolutely huge. He was a great life coach. So was my mother in different ways. But I don't think dads sometimes understand that.
The power of that.
Oh, it's so powerful.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to ask a true or false question. When you became the first woman athlete to make $100,000 a year, you still couldn't get a credit card in your own name.
Correct. We couldn't get a credit card until 1975-ish, I think, 5.
So Larry had to sign.
Oh, then Larry'd get furious. He was a law student. He'd go, do you see all the credit cards I get? They want to sign me up because they know I'm going to be a lawyer, I'm going to have lots of money. But you're the one that should be getting the credit cards, not me. You're getting me through law school. Oh, what a concept. I mean, it's just unbelievable, these things that would go on. So we always laughed over it, but he was such a feminist, that helped. And
So it's my personal theory is that Title IX is the closest thing to an equal rights amendment
Oh, it's
that ever
amazing.
passed in this country.
it's so interesting. There's not one word, okay, it's 37 words. There's not one word of classroom quotas. The word sports is not in there. So I'll give you some history here. It was about classroom quotas. what happened before 1972, it was passed June 23rd, 1972. Before 1972, if, let's say you're a woman that wanted to go to medical school at Harvard and get your medical degree, they allowed 5% of the classroom to be women. And the reason we didn't have a lot of women lawyers and doctors, which I didn't understand, I was in my 20s, why don't we have more women doctors and lawyers? Well, Title IX, because there's very few people. They kept the percentages very low. If you're only getting 5% of a class being women, you're never going to have that many. So that's what was happening. So that opened that up.
But you guys understood the import of that law.
Oh, absolutely. Here's the magic. I ended up, Senator Birchby was one of my heroes because I got to know him. And he's one of the co-authors of Title IX. And he told me, I was at a women's Final Four conference in Cleveland in the, I don't know, 2000, early 2000s. He said he was so excited, so happy what Title IX had done. He said, Billie, you can't believe what happened. There's the word activity in there. That's the word you want to hang your hat on. And he said, we didn't know whether to leave it in or take it out. Leave it in or take it out. He said, we finally said, you know what, let's just leave it in as a catch-all. I don't know what'll happen. He had no idea, they had no idea how that was going to affect women's sports. So without Title IX, we would not have women's sports the way it is today.
So is it fair that we convey, that physical competence conveys such an aura of overall competence? I mean, is there such a thing as grace under pressure?
Absolutely, because girls are taught not to trust our bodies. That's another thing. We're taught not to trust our bodies. Sports teach us to trust our bodies, just like it helps guys to trust their bodies. So for no other reason, and you don't have to be any good, but you start to trust yourself. You also understand the culture, I think, of business. Not so much now, but in those days, because men were the ones that ran all the businesses. And I think it's really important. Everything has its own language, as you all know. And that's why you learned about their language. It's so important because relationships are everything. Ed Woolard, who was the CEO of DuPont, he was a mentor for Ilana and me, a dear friend. But he and I spent 3 years on coming up with 3 bullets because I have to do commencement speeches. They're like 22-year-olds. What can we give them that they'll have the rest of their lives? So he and I spent 3 years on coming up with 3 things that we felt that we learned about people that had inner success and outer success. If you didn't have inner success, it didn't work. And here's the 3 things we came up with. And they don't have to be in this order, you decide. Relationships are everything. With yourself, your loved ones, your cohorts at business, in sports. Sports teach you about that, about connections, relationships, especially if you're on a team. So that is huge. And one of the other ones is keep learning and keep learning how to learn. Keep learning and keep learning how to learn. And the third one, be a problem solver and an innovator. And we found those 3 things, and you decide what order, but I will guarantee you every single day, the rest of your life, one of those will be popping up every day. It happens to me all the time, and I start laughing. Ed isn't with us anymore, so I just have a little chuckle. I go, Ed is still going strong here. So I think if you think about that, it might help you too, especially the younger ones here back in the back. You're like my commencement speech thought, so you can take it in. And I'm huge with history. That the more you know about history, that's why I love. I mean, I could read all of your stories and books now, and I'd love it because I love history. And you do need to, what was it with Boughton, Jim Boughton, Ball 4?
Ball 4.
Oh, you have to read. Oh, that book was great. But that's why it's important. But the more you know about history, the more you know about yourself. But it's going to help you shape the future. The reason I was able to help change our sport of tennis is because I love history so much. I knew the history of tennis backwards, forwards. I love it. I got to talk to all the champions and listen to their stories. I love asking questions and just listening. And it helped me so much have a much richer life, much fuller life. But because when things happened, I was able to shape and help shape tennis in talking to the other players, for instance, because I knew the history. They weren't interested in history. They didn't know where to go when they wanted to talk. I did. Why? Because I talked to all the past champions. They helped me so much to have those connections, to have their stories, their understanding. They taught me, I mean, when I used to be on the court, I used to go, the mid-court shot, that's Alice Marble. To put my racket in my left hand, that's Margaret DuPont. I mean, I have everything that goes on in my head. I go, I owe it to that person, to that person, to that person. And I just love it. But that's the reason we were the leaders, and probably still are in many ways, women's professional tennis, is because not only were we making history, I would tell the players about the past and the history and where we need to go. And we'd always talk about talking to you. The media is everything because they tell our story. If we don't get our story out, nobody's going to come to watch us. So it all starts with you guys. I don't think you realize how much. And I tell the players to this day, please go talk to the media after your matches and give them one-on-ones. Stop this baloney, and I don't say baloney, I say the other word. Just stop it and give them time. And then I go, okay, when you see those media people, you know, the writers listening or asking you a question, does it ever dawn on you that they're trying to make a living, just like you're trying to make a living? And they go, not one player has said, oh yeah, of course. They go, oh, I never thought about that. I just said it the other day to a group. I'm like, hello? You're trying to make a living, right? You want more prize money? You want more? Well, give more to them because they're trying to make a living too. And they go, oh, I never thought of it like that. So I don't know. I don't think it works, but because the agents are always the challenge. I think today. I think the agents have. I see a lot of people nodding out there.
Yeah.
So I think I'm all right. They didn't get it. So I keep thinking about how can we get the agents to change. That's one of my goals. I don't know. We'll figure that out.
We'll have a little cohort talk about that after the session.
You know, we need to do that. We need to change them.
Let's talk about relationships for a second because your locker room that you came up in was. We talked about this a little bit before this started. Let's talk about. It was an unusual situation because you're sitting literally, like, let's go to the 1971 U.S. Open at Forest Hills. You're in a locker room with little Chrissy Everett, who's just knocked out.
That was a very difficult time because we just started the women's professional tennis that year. Chrissy's an amateur because her dad won't let her be a pro. And she's 16, remember, got to put it in perspective. And I'm thinking, if she wins this, our tour is doomed. The amateur beat the pro, we're finished. I don't know what we're gonna do. I had the discussion, you know, I tried to get Chris to go with us, but her dad wouldn't let her, and she was too young. She's still apologizing to me, by the way. I go, Chris, would you stop it? I knew your dad was making the decisions. I told all the other players, your dad's making the decisions, and they weren't very nice to her, and I was so ticked at them, because I got to see her play her first match at the U.S. Open in 1971. She was down 6 match points against Marianne Eisel. You cannot believe the way she played these match points. I go, oops, there's our next superstar. And we need a superstar. My generation's getting older. Who's going to carry the baton? And when I saw her, I go, that's the one. Just like Caitlin Clark, she's the one. It filled the stadiums. Everybody, it was about Chris. She likes Chrissy now. Can you believe that? Anyway, Chris in those days, she sold them out. I mean, she sold out the stadiums, just like television went. Everything went the right direction. So I had to have a meeting with the players, older players. I go, you guys, you got to start being nice to Chris. And any young player coming up, it's our job to be nice to them, to mentor them, and please say hello. And I said, she's our next superstar, so get over yourself. She's the one. And they're going, oh, like this. I go, and guess what? And you always have to think in their self-interest. You can't get people to change. I go, and she's going to put more money in your pockets. Oh. And I said, so I'd like you to be nice to her from now on. And every other young player coming on, it's our job to mentor, to be helpful. So they were great. It's amazing. People will change. You have to give them a reason. It's got to be self-interest. You always try to figure out self-interest. That's what I do with the players.
I feel like to this day, there's this quiet sense of alliance between you, Chris, Martina,
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Tracy,
Yeah,
Austin.
totally.
I mean, it's the weirdest thing to be around you guys because I've never been around so many great players who have such a good relationship, which is really strange because you were trying to choke each other to death on the
Oh,
court.
when we're on the court, that's a whole nother discussion. Oh my gosh.
How'd you do that? How'd you guys pull that off?
Well, guys learn that. You can
Do
be
they?
buddies, go out to dinner after you kill each other, right? It's the same thing. It's exactly the same thing. And
But
I
did
think
you?
we had such a common want and goal for our sport too.
That's what I was going to ask. Did you feel like you were all in it together?
Oh, yes. I would always tell us that we're in this together, and yes, absolutely. And our group really mentored Chris and Martina. Like, we spent so much time with them, you have no idea. And one day I'm at the locker, we're in the locker, Chris and I look at Chris, I go, hey, Chris, this is a few years later, you've got to be the president of the WTA. She's looking at me, I don't want to do that. Are you kidding? I said, you have to. She says, well, why? I said, because the media won't talk to a player unless you're really good. And you're number one. And they'll want to talk to you. They don't want to talk to somebody else. Oh, God. And she's like, that's the way she's talking. Oh, you know. And so we still have a great time when we talk about this because she says, you put a gun to my head. And I said, yeah, I did. This is what's funnier, though. So she becomes president. I said, would you just do it for 1 year? She says, okay, Billie, I'll do it for you. Okay. So she does it. How many years do you think she was president of the WTA? Just take a guess. 11 years. Can't get rid of her, right?
Well done.
No, isn't that funny?
Yeah.
Oh, God, she's funny.
Great. That's great.
We had so much fun.
In 1972, is it 1972? You win 3 legs of the Grand Slam, but you didn't go to Australia.
No, that was our tour. We gave up all kinds of slams. When you look at a certain generation, mine and Martina, Chris, Tracy, we didn't play in Australia in January. We played 2 tournaments in the Virginia Slims of San Francisco and the Virginia Slims of Los Angeles, say. And we didn't go to Australia. So when you look at Australia, I didn't go 11 of my best years, okay? I know that. I know the others could give you a better fact, but I just know mine, so I'm not clear on theirs. But they didn't go enough either. So when you look at Chris, you look at Martina, you look at Tracy, you look at me, and we did not put the slams as the big deal to win like it is now, because we wanted to change the sport to pro and not amateur. And I made a really conscious decision when I was young that I knew I wouldn't win as many titles, but would we make our sport the way we want to make our sport? Which one do you think is worth more? To me personally, it was a no-brainer. I've said I will give up titles to make our sport work for the future generations. For me, it wasn't that tough. But then people come to me now and go, well, you only won one Australian and you only did this. And I'm like, and I don't usually say anything, but I'm thinking, they just don't know history.
But you're still happy with that trade?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Not even close. Absolutely worth it.
Yeah.
Would have 72 been my best year? What do I think I would have won the Australian?
Yeah.
Of course I think I won. I'm I'm a jock. I'm an athlete. What do you know? Like all athletes or writers. You know how you guys are. It's gonna
What's
be
the
a
one
great
that
story?
What's the one that got away? What's the one that haunts you? And what's your favorite? What's the one that you still?
I don't really think about that.
Mary Carillo saying the Wimbledon
Ann
final.
Jones, yeah, I
Ann
did
Jones.
lose to Ann Jones. I double faulted on match point, I remember. That's a whole nother story. We're not going there. But that's when we were contract pros. That's when there were 4 women connected to George McCall, and then they didn't also allow us to play in a lot of events because we were contract pros. So no one's going to know that now, but we know. And was it worth it? Absolutely. For me, I can't speak for the others. But we also had the greatest rivalry, probably of any sport, which I don't think they get enough credit. They're not talked about enough, and that's Martina Navratilova and Chris Evert. They played 80 times. If you can show me one other situation where they played 80 times, I don't think so. I can't think of any. And they were pretty close. They almost won similar. I think Martina's a little bit ahead by 2 or 3 matches. And they were so great to watch because you had 2 great athletes. Chris was underestimated what a great athlete she was. And Martina was an amazing athlete. She could have done any sport. And been Olympic gold medal and whatever. And I don't think they're appreciated enough. I know if there were two guys, they would be. And that makes me angry. That's still, I get a little anger. So I really think they should be appreciated more. Their contrast of styles made it absolutely fascinating.
You know, they won 18 Grand Slam titles apiece.
Oh, they would've won more.
If you look at, well, I think they robbed each other of 8 or 10
Oh, that's what always
apiece,
happens when you
right?
get the great ones. That's what happens.
Like, I don't think Federer and Nadal had to play each other. Like, if you look at how many Grand Slam finals they played, I mean, it's fractional
It's not that
compared
many.
to the number.
Comparatively, you're
Yeah.
absolutely correct.
Yeah.
No, they would have had more than 18. See, but everyone gets so excited about who won the most slams. But if you have the history, you realize, ooh, there's a lot behind those things.
So let's go back to the Bobby Riggs night for a minute, because I didn't quite finish my train of thought and asking about that. But did you feel the visceral sense of pressure that everyone else was feeling for you, or did you really know you had him?
Oh, you never have it.
Okay.
No. You never, in sports, the great thing about sports is you never have it until you're shaking hands at the net if you're a player.
What are you thinking when you're well, first you're being carried
Well, first
on
of
that
all,
throne.
you remember I spent two months on thinking about this, feeling it, understanding what the public was feeling and thinking. I mean, everybody was betting. Neighborhood parties. I can't. I knew that was going to happen, though.
Friends had money riding on you, right?
A lot. And other people, actually, some of the players bet against me. That was fun.
Who bet
Not-
against you?
Players. They thought he'd win. Everybody thought he would. Most people thought he would win. Well, Chrissy thought I would lose too, but she's still apologizing for that. I go, could you stop it? You were like 17 years old, whatever she was. And if you listen to everybody's interviews and listen to what's going on and what people are writing, then you would think that. He was a Hall of Famer. He wasn't just an old guy. He was one of my heroes. I knew a lot about him. He knew nothing about me. That's another thing that happens a lot. That was in my favor because I watched all his. See, I like history, so I watched all his tapes. I read his books. I knew he helped, sign Pancho Gonzalez to the Pro Tour. I can tell you all. I love this guy, and he didn't know me, but I knew him. But I knew that I knew how people were going to respond, the public, and Title IX was really important to me, and the future. And to break down like a woman getting a credit card or whatever, and then dads thinking about their daughters differently, and men thinking about women differently, and women thinking about themselves differently. After that match, they're still, like grandchildren still come up to me and tell me what their grandparents said about that match, or women for the first time had self-confidence. They saw a life for them. I had a woman the other day talk to me. She's quite elderly now, obviously, but she said, I had given up on life. I didn't have any goals. But when you played Bobby Riggs that night and I watched that, I changed my whole life. I've had an amazing life because of your match. Women had self-confidence for the first time. Fathers and men, on the other hand, would come up to me many times. Actually, they were much more reflective. And a lot of times they'd be crying, and the women were more like jubilant. And they would say, you know what? I never thought about like my daughter or my niece or my wife, or I hadn't really thought about it. And of course I want my daughter to have equal opportunity with my son. And I didn't really think about it until now. When I first met President Obama, he said to me, he was 12 years old, and he goes, when I watched that match, it changed everything for me. And now I have 2 daughters. I'm trying to help raise 2 daughters with Michelle. But that match really helped me to really think about gender, to think about my wife, just to think differently, or to be open to thinking about things differently. So it's very interesting, the feedback I've gotten all these years from the public. And so if it helped them have a better life, then that's really what you want. You want people to be able to use it for themselves.
Did you know that night when you won that it would have these kind of legs?
I knew it could, but I wasn't sure. It was my prayer and my hope but you don't really know.
What was your thought on match point?
Oh my God, I've been choking so badly. I hit one forehand that hit a foot before it got to the net. I was like, I couldn't get my arm through. And then I thought, okay, here we go again. The Australian guys and girls, when I went to Australia in the 60s, they were fantastic to me. And the one thing a couple of the guys taught me, whatever you do, just get the ball back. Even if it's horrible, get it over the net and in the court. You never know. And so I've blown like 3 match points or 2. I am so choked. I can't breathe now, okay? And so I go, okay, I remember them. This is why they all help me in life constantly. I go, okay, Billie, just get it over. So I'm going to hit this ball 10 feet over the net, and he's so tired, I hope he can't raise his arm to hit it. That's exactly what happened. He comes in, he hits a backhand. It should have been a winner. He hit it in the net. But the Australians won that match. That point for me, right? I'm telling you, I have all these little things throughout the match or when I'm living life or whatever that help me. So he comes towards the net. He's going to jump over the net. He's so tired. How does he think he can jump over the net? I'm like, oh my God, he's coming. Oh, I'm getting ready to catch him. Like getting ready. And he comes and he jumps over the net and he puts his arm around me and he goes, I underestimated you. Oh, I gotta talk to my dad. Oh my God, you know what my dad told my brother and me every day of our lives? Okay, Billie, I want you always to respect your opponent. Always respect your opponent. And even if you don't like them, I want you to respect them. My dad told my brother and me that like every other day. Always respect people, always respect your opponent, no matter who they are. And he told me, my dad says, don't ever underestimate anyone, ever. And he tells me, I underestimated you. I go, and my parents never came to my matches, hardly ever. They went to Wimbledon once because we gave them a plane ticket, they had to. Never went to the Open, never went to anything. But I said, you have to come to the Riggs match, King Riggs match. And they go, oh, okay. So they were there. So I couldn't wait to see my Daddy. Do you know what he said to me? I underestimated you. He says, he got the biggest grin. He was so cute. And my mother said, see? My mother, that's all she had to say.
That feels like a perfect stopping point.
Yeah, but anyway, they were great.
But thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you.
All
Well, thank you to everyone.
these
Congratulations to the winners. Thank you so much. Anyway, congratulations to the other winners.
My favorite Billie Jean King story, Sal was here that night. I was lucky enough to share a Wimbledon flat for many years with Alana and Billie. Yeah, we were roommates, and a lot of people would come in and have dinner with us, including Sal, eat Indian food and anyway, we were there one night. We were watching a British player named Tim Henman, who was a very fine serve and volley player, but he never won a major. He got to 4 semifinals at Wimbledon. He couldn't get any further. And we were watching him lose. And Billie he's not, you've just gotta, she's coaching him and he's not listening. And so we're having this big discussion. And I think and Billie's explaining that, British people, they want to lose with grace and dignity, and, they don't, they're good losers. You can't be good losers. So then I think it was Sal who said, but Billie, she said, what about over as you walk into Wimbledon center court, there's a Rudyard Kipling quote, if you can meet with triumph and disaster and treat those 2 imposters just the same. So Sal says, but Billie, isn't that,
What about Kipling?
yeah, what about Kipling? And Billie says, Rudyard Kipling was full of shit. Right? True story. Sorry, little gorgeous little kid. It wasn't me, it was her. Okay, all right, thank you. So there you go. My girl, Billie. The final presenter is a journalist, author, and editor, Alex Wolff, who spent more than 3 decades at Sports Illustrated, amazing writer, has written 7 books about basketball. He will, come on up, Alex. He's going to present the Lifetime Achievement Medal.
I was very struck and moved that both Seth and Wright and Billie talked about links in a chain when you were talking, Billie, about thinking of your historical antecedents with every stroke. That was so beautiful because that's exactly the note you were striking, right? And I'm also struck by how the year 1973 is getting invoked a lot here tonight because it's been a half century since Sports Illustrated asked Roy Blount Jr. to embed with the Pittsburgh Steelers for the season chronicled in his book About 3 Bricks Shy of a Load. And that year was 1973. So if we can ride that wave of nostalgia just a little longer here tonight. Roy, for that book, cut a deal unimaginable today. He promised not to get any Steelers fired, arrested, or divorced. And in return, they let him go everywhere except team meetings, although running back Rocky Bleier, I believe, wound up offering to sneak a tape recorder into those meetings for him, an offer that Roy gracefully declined. And in that book, Roy got down bets at the racetrack with owner Art Rooney and hung out with groundskeeper Dirt DiNardo. He got told by L.C. Greenwood that L.C. stands for Lover Cool, when L.C., in fact, didn't stand for anything. And he watched Bleier strut around the locker room impersonating a chicken, looking, Roy told us, as if Maurice Sendak might have drawn him. Dipping snuff, haunting the player's favorite tavern till last call, then lighting out on crawls of the Iron City's blues clubs. Roy drank so much beer with various Steelers that he gained, by his own account, 13 pounds, and once laughed so hard with them that one of those players in Roy's presence felt a bruised rib become a broken rib. Indeed, Roy had so much fun telling their stories. He had as much fun telling their stories as they did playing the game. He referred to such linemen as Greenwood and Dwight White and Mean Joe Green as incomprehensible compounds of heft and twinkle, which, in the words of New York Times book critic Dwight Garner, is a pretty good description of this book. The Washington Post called 3 Bricks Shy one of the top 10 sports books of all time, while at the same time praising its gentleness. The New Yorker called it the best of all books about pro football. But let me see if I can explain the impact 3 Bricks Shy had in grubbier precincts. A generation of wannabe sports writers read it and said to ourselves, "You mean you can do this?" And then we faced the realization that, yes, this can be done, but you, young fella, cannot do this. Only someone with as finely tuned an ear, as supple an imagination, as idiosyncratic a sensibility, as rich a set of observational powers, as refined a knack for receding into the background as Roy could do this. Only someone who grasped the baseline absurdity of chasing games during those tumultuous years could do this. Only someone who understood that culture, politics, race, foreign affairs, they were all being fed into the blender, and the catalog of what we could laugh at was being radically expanded, could do this. In 2012, SI asked Roy to revisit those Steelers, and the resulting piece holds the valedictory position in the Library of America collection, Football, Great Writing About the National Sport. In it, Roy invites Dwight White to contrast his Steelers with the players in today's NFL. White's assessment is brutal. They don't have any gizzards. We had gizzards, man. So Roy Blount Jr. is not the Jenkins Lifetime Achievement Medalist solely because of one immortal book. We honor him because he could turn to anything he wanted, and again he chose sports, writing about them with grace, humanity, stamina, and of course, humor. After serving on the SI staff from 1968 through 1975, he went freelance, but the magazine would claw him back for assignments that editors knew no one else could do justice to. Many involved magisterial American mononyms, Wilt, Reggie, Yogi, Willie, or required participatory cojones, race car driving school, rafting the Amazon, catching catfish with your bare hands. But always there was that book. I'd go so far as to contend that the only flaw in Three Bricks Shy was its timing. Roy showed up in Pittsburgh, yes, in 1973, a year shy of an accumulating load that became 4 Super Bowl titles. But once a Steelers scribe, always a Steelers scribe. So in January 1975, Roy made sure to find a seat on the team plane that touched down in Pittsburgh in the wee hours after that first Super Bowl crown, placing him among the Steelers being conveyed through the airport concourse, past baggage claim, into the parking lot, borne on a tide of 10,000 delirious Pittsburghers. Here's how Roy described it. They were all cheering. They were reaching out hands to shake. I shook them all. Women sitting on friends' shoulders were bending down to kiss my head. People were yelling, "Great game." It was like heaven, everybody happy, everybody loving you. It went on and on through the warm, bright airport, out into the cold, dark lot, as though it were going to go on forever, through day and night and all the seasons. And one person toward the end even recognized me for what I was, and rather than snorting, "You're no player," cried out, "Great book." The wisdom of crowds, ladies and gentlemen, and your 2025 Lifetime Achievement Medalist, Roy Blount Jr. Congratulations. Around your neck properly. Okay. And we're going to turn around again.
Wow. This is really cool.
It is cool.
I mean, what? Photo, yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you. What? What? Oh, button your coat,
my
for
coat.
Christ's sake.
Can't take me anywhere.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, thank you all. It's so great. That was a great moment. I hadn't forgotten that. But at any rate, I'm reminded of 2 things that Reggie Jackson said. Well, no, first I'm going to say something that Billie Jean King just said, which was, Sally said, "Did you think you had it?" at that point, right? Is that what, did I hear? Think you had it. And she said, "No, you never think you had it." And I would say that about democracy right now. We can't say that we got it. Because it's being taken away. It's being taken away. But sports are still out there. And I'm going to quote Reggie Jackson twice. First time was, he said, talked about line drives. Line drives are such a wonderful thing in baseball. Just a clean shot. Somebody might catch it, somebody might, or not. But it's a straight line. It's a clean straight line. He said, you get a pitch and you line it somewhere, and it's like you have had a thought and expressed it in perfect clarity. That's a remarkable thing, I think, for a baseball player to say, and that's something I've always wanted to do, is you realize that you have a thought, but you want to make it clear. And it applies to any kind of writing. And but on the other hand, the second quote from Reggie is, when in his last year he said, "I don't want to go on wringing out the rag of ability." And I've gotten to that point myself. After you get, I'm old and wise now, and I realize, I'm wise enough to realize that young and foolish is better. Walter Yost and I used to go out there where they were, and we I don't know. Well, it was a different time then in sports journalism, but it was so free. It was great, and but it was responsible. I mean, I think we always we could come back. We could always come back, and I don't know. I just want to pay tribute to how free it all was back then, and I don't know, and it's not now, I guess. I don't know, but I don't know why you can't make it free again. But at any rate, the Jenkins, when I heard the something about lifetime achievement, I thought it was nighttime achievement. I did stay out late a lot, and often with the Jenkinses. You see the Jenkins over here. There they are. No, not really. Not them. But they, and I would come home sometimes without the Jenkinses and come back to the city and find myself, I couldn't get all the way to the west side. And I knew that the Jenkinses' Upper East Side apartment was always open. You could go in there and find an empty bedroom and take a few hours of rest before you went out and enjoyed your freedom again. And one night I was in there in Sally's room, and Sally was off at Stanford somewhere, and she had all these great books, and I signed them all. I couldn't quite go to sleep. I didn't sign my own name. I signed the name of the author of every book, with personal messages, as I recall. I don't know. Chaucer, I don't know who they all were, but I don't know. I'm trying to think of an author now. Dickens, I don't know. Charles Dickens would say, "Sally, thank God for buying this book now, because I'm about to go under." And I don't know. I had personal messages on all those books. And those being out late in those days was a whole lot of fun. But one time I was assigned to write an as told to story with Wilt Chamberlain. An as told to story was that sports. I was still with Sports Illustrated then. By the way, after I left Sports Illustrated, I continued to write things for them from time to time, and I went back and looked at the vault recently. Talk about being recognized. I looked at the vault, and they had taken my byline off, and it would say like an SI staffer. It replaced my byline. Even things that were first-person things, So it's all about intellectual property or something. But I still, I have my memories whether they've taken my byline away or not. But at any rate, one time, this was a time where I had a shared byline with Wilt Chamberlain. Now, Wilt Chamberlain was a huge person. He was listed as 7'1" and I don't know how many pounds, but he was clearly taller than that, because when I would turn to him in an elevator once, I was looking at his elbow. I mean, he was standing there, and he was a huge man. And I want to give you some perspective. Peter Carey was another writer at Sports Illustrated when I was there. he and I played a little basketball, and he and I were pretty much as forceful on the court as each other, which is to say not very forceful at all, but still, we were human beings, and we would be out there. And one time, Peter Carey said to Dave DeBusschere, who was pretty big himself, but not nearly as big as Wilt, Peter Carey said to Dave DeBusschere, what's it like under the basket there when you're all kind of shoving each other? And I just always wondered, and at that, Dave DeBusschere just put the back of his hand against Peter Carey and threw him across the room. So there's that. Dave DeBusschere then once said, somebody said, did you ever see Wilt get mad? And he said, nobody ever wanted Wilt to ever get mad. We were afraid. And so then also there was a guy named Bob Lanier, a wonderful player, who was also big, but not as big as Wilt. And he, one thing about Bob Lanier is that he had the biggest, he was, I guess this was accurate, I don't know, scientific. He was renowned for having the biggest feet in the NBA. Size 22, that's like 2 11s. Size 22 on each foot, size 22. And one time, when Bob Lanier was trying to get between Wilt and the basket, Wilt picked him up, feet and all, and set him down, and went ahead and did whatever he wanted to do. So, if you can follow that progression from me and Peter Carey to Wilt and Bob Lanier, you realize that Wilt was a commanding presence. But I had been asked to do a story about, an as-told-to story from Wilt about his retirement from being an active player in the NBA. And I went out there to his house in Bel Air, in the airport. Not the airport, I mean Bel Air up in the hills above L.A. to work with Wilt. And he had, there was a wonderful, big, one thing about his place was that the ceilings were about this high, maybe a little higher than these ceilings. And he, also, an odd feature of his place was that he had Wolff muzzles all around. He apparently had, I didn't ask him what the provenance of these Wolff muzzles were, but he apparently gotten somehow, his interior decorator had found a truckload of Wolff muzzles, this thing off of a Wolff. And they were all sewn together in Wilt's upholstery and Wilt's carpeting. And so it had an effect on you. You were there in this vaulted ceiling and all these Wolff muzzles kind of all around. And I had to, and Wilt was great to work with. That wasn't a problem. As told to, there are a lot of ball players I ran into who, for instance, Pete Rose once said, somebody asked him about a book, and he said, I don't think I've ever read a book. And somebody said, well, Pete, you've written two. So it's never all that clear about literary connections to athletes. But Wilt was very well spoken, and he would, there's a big difference sometimes between spoken English, and written English, and so you lose a lot sometimes. Somebody who's really well spoken and a good talker, sometimes when you write it down, it's not so good. But Wilt, you wrote it down, and it sounded like what it said. And so we were working along really well. And but another thing about Wilt was, one thing about Wilt was that he had recently disclosed or stated that he had slept with 12,000 women. I think that was the figure. And this was in a book he wrote about himself. And Peter Gathers, a friend of mine, was the editor of that book, and he called up and said, Wilt, we've been doing the math on this, and we can't quite, it's an average of like 9,000 women a week for 20 years. I don't know what it was. And Wilt said, well, okay, there was this one big birthday party. So there was that. So anyway, that was I wouldn't say that was in the air. They were all, we were all guys together there. But he did have a lot of friends there. And the friends were there to help protect him from me. Because Wilt had done a story years before, as told to, Sports Illustrated story, about his impressions of the NBA. And he had felt misrepresented by the headline of those stories. So his deal was that he had to approve of every word that ever came into the story, including especially the headline. And that was fine with me, but but meanwhile, these guys in the house were just sort of, there was this sort of prime, like I was trying to take advantage of Wilt. And I was certainly not. But in those days, we didn't have just immediate things where you press a button and you write. I remember in those days driving at 4 o'clock in the morning with a typescript to the Western Union, or calling up Western Union and reading out the whole story to them, including punctuation and odd spellings and things. But we did have this thing that Hunter Thompson called a mojo machine, which you could put a paper in, a typescript in, and watch it for quite a while, and it would go, and it would transfer over the phone from an editor to a writer, say. And I had sent my stuff in through that, and now we were waiting the edited copy coming back from the writer. And we were standing around there, and the friends were sort of, I don't know, they weren't threatening, but they were just sort of moving around and saying things, Wilt, come in here and don't talk about Wilt. And all of a sudden, the mojo machine started producing copy, and I brought it out and showed Wilt every page of the actual, of the story itself, and he approved of it all. It was cool. But then the headline started coming in, and the main head was, "My impact will be everlasting." And I handed that up to Wilt, and he read it, and he said, "That's fine, Right? But meanwhile, the friends were still on edge. They were saying like, and so that was good. But then the subhead came in, and the subhead said, "A dominant force in basketball announces his retirement from the game." Now, all of a sudden, I read that out to Wilt, showed it to him, and his friends were saying, "I don't know about dominant force, a dominant, I don't know why he's going a dominant." And Wilt said, and I looked at Wilt, and he said, "A dominant?" And I said, "Well, dominant, I think, the meaning, dominant's such a great word and strong word, and force is such." And he said, "A dominant?" Now, I couldn't change that myself, because it had been written by an editor. But I could call in to the Sports Illustrated and talk to the editor, or get Will to talk to the editor, and I did that. But the editor had left the office, and he had gone to a place called the Ho Ho Chinese restaurant, which is very close. Back then, the Sports Illustrated was in the Time Life building, and right next to it was the Ho Ho Chinese restaurant. And the thing about the Ho Ho Chinese, there were two reasons to go to the Chinese restaurant, Ho Ho. One was the food was not very good, but one reason was it was close to hand. The other one was that every fourth drink was free. So when you think about it, it didn't hardly pay not to have 8. And the editor, when I reached him, was into perhaps his 5th or 6th. And I said, I'm here with Wilt, and we have a little problem with the story about the headline. The headline is the problem. And the editor was, as I say, in his 6th or 7th, he said, I don't know. So I had to appeal to somebody else. And there was Sports Illustrated had an operator named Muriel, who could, like the White House phone operators, I don't know anymore, but can find whoever you're looking for somehow or another and patch them into conversation. Muriel could patch any editor into the conversation. And Muriel, once Muriel had attitude too. She was not just a passive patcher. She, one time when Andre Laguerre, who's the imperious French managing editor of Sports Illustrated, slammed his receiver down, and it rang again, and he picked it up, and it was Muriel, and Muriel said, Andre, if everyone whanged his receiver, I would have to have brain surgery. So he never whanged his receiver again. So Muriel was there. So Muriel had connected me to this editor, but the editor himself was just no use at all. And and meanwhile, the friends, Wilt's friends, were sort of milling around the background and saying things like, thing I don't see is you come into a man's home and call him a dominant. And so I finally, I said, Wilt, you're going to have to talk to him yourself. And Wilt, and they said, yeah, I know a dominant, because I knew that the dominant was what he wanted, and the dominant force was a little bit much. I mean, there are a lot of dominant people, and also the didn't really fit. A dominant and the dominant didn't really. There was just an extra letter there. It didn't really fit the head. So I said, Wilt, you have to talk to him. So Wilt said, yeah, no. And meanwhile, the Wolff muzzles were sort of bristling up underneath me. And Wilt said, yeah, well, I understand. I mean, I realize that I know what dominant means and force means, but I just thought, and to my astonishment, I was hearing Wilt mollified. He finally hung up and said, okay. So he looked at me and said, who the hell is Muriel? So I've always assumed that there was a higher authority out there and that it was Muriel. Anybody got any questions about what we've covered so far?
When is Muriel getting the lifetime achievement?
What?
When is Muriel getting the lifetime achievement?
Muriel should be here with me tonight, yeah. But, all right, thank you all.
There's absolutely no way to follow that. So let's end it right here. Thank you all so much. It's been a pleasure and an honor to be part of this room tonight. Have a good rest of the night, everyone. Congratulations. Really.